You wonder what happened in sports today. Brandon PETRILLI, he got the wave. We talking a lot with bros today. Cracking some jokes the podcast way. Goals on goals, with homers on homers. Tutties on tutties, got moments on moments. Just tune into BSP. Just tune into BSP. Just tune into BSP. Just tune into PETRILLI.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the BSP podcast. And this is going to be a little bit of a different one here. We got a special guest with us, because guess what? We're dimpleheads here. We're parverts. The Masters just wrapped up this weekend. I had to get a good buddy of mine. Man, he's working for the PGA Tour now. My boy, Andrew Snyder. Andrew, how we doing, pal?
Doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic. Yeah, it was a great weekend of golf for sure. I was glued. It was a fun one. It was a two-horse race for a while there, but it was awesome on Sunday to see so many guys in contention, especially given it was sort of a different Masters. You had a beautiful day on Thursday, a lot of low scores coming in, a guy shooting in the mid 60s for the most part, especially your leaders, Koepka on fire first couple of rounds. And then you had that sort of storm that rolled through, a couple delays of play, and it kind of allowed everybody to have a reset and then make a charge on Sunday. So it was a great weekend of golf for sure.
Yeah. So we got Andrew here, right? He just gave you a little bit of that dry, nice cookie cutter answers. That's not the boy I know. That's not the man I know. We've spent many of days and nights abroad and locally hanging out, having fun. But I bet you that's what you did a little bit this weekend, having a good time with it. One of the biggest events for golf during the year. But as you said it, there was a lot of awesome things that happened. Obviously, I'm not a huge golf guy. I'm trying to get into it. Just bought some clubs. We'll see how it goes. Might play 18 tomorrow after work before I go to the Phillies game. Well, actually, that'll be today. It's coming out on Tuesday here. I'll be at Dollar Dog Night, section 202. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. I want to challenge anybody in a hot dog eating contest. If you're there, feel free to hit me up. We'll see who can eat a dog the fastest. All right. So we'll have some fun with it. But yeah, Andrew, the biggest thing, sorry if I get your nickname in there too. So everybody just kind of roll with us
Go
here.
ahead. Have at it.
Yeah, we'll just roll with it. It'll probably just roll off the tongue anyway. But yeah, there's so many different storylines. You had the big rain come through, but I think the biggest thing was that there were a lot of guys that were in contention, that were floating around, maybe being able to, within striking distance, to make a run. And you saw a guy like Phil Mickelson make a bit of a run, but you had guys like, Cam Young, Scotty Scheffler, Victor Hovland, Patrick Reed, Russell Henley. Like all these guys were kind of floating around, Brooks and our boy John Rahm, but all those guys kind of faltered on that Sunday afternoon. And even Brooks, who had a 2-stroke lead heading into the, or 4-stroke lead heading into the day, they all kind of faltered. John shot through, played well. All he had to do was coast the rest of the day. What do you kind of make of that? Was it just the inexperience and Rahm just kind of was able to run with it?
No, I mean Kepka's won 4 majors, right? So he knows how to win.
Yeah.
I just think those live guys, they forgot how to win a real golf tournament. I mean, it's one of those
There you
things
go.
where, playing in a live tournament in front of 50 people it's not going to cut it when you get to Masters Sunday at Augusta and the entire world is on your shoulders. And you could tell. I mean, you could tell physically and mentally Koepka was beaten by Rahm up and down the course for, I think they played between the rest of the third round and obviously the Sunday round, they played 29 holes as a pairing, which is ridiculous to have somebody looking over your shoulder for 8 hours and hunting you down the entire day. And Rahm, it's his second major. He's still less than 30. And I have no problem saying that he'll probably win at least 4 or 5 more majors, when his career is all said and done. But yeah, as to what you said, going back to live, I mean, it was in my heart, working for the tour, I wanted nothing more than to watch Koepka choke, and it happened, and I was happy. And having Rahm win, who is quickly becoming one of the faces of the PGA Tour, was awesome. He's a model individual compared to somebody like Phil Mickelson. And I have some choice words for him. Do we have to keep it clean here, or?
You can go. We can keep it within reason.
So he is what some people would call a dick. And for the most part, it's because he's been trashing the PGA Tour as soon as he left, and it's the tour that made him, right? There is no Phil Mickelson without the PGA Tour. He doesn't become anything without it. He leaves. He tries to justify some atrocities from a Saudi-backed league, and then comes in here. And I'm not going to deny that he played well, but it was nice to see him come up short. And I mean, you could say the same thing about the cheater and Patrick Reed. He's a notorious cheater. Going down a little bit farther, you really only have three live guys in contention. And those three live guys would have been in contention at any point in time because they are all, with the exception of Koepka, Masters champions. Patrick Reed has won, Mickelson's won three. But I think you could see in terms of the strength, the PGA Tour hasn't lost much. I mean, Mickelson is on the back three of his career, not even the back nine. He's almost done. His hair is gone. He's out. You have Koepka, who you could see in the last round. Probably, I want to say when the gap got close to 2 strokes, you could tell he lost it. And Rahm, I mean, when you smell blood in the water as a PGA Tour golfer, you got to seize the opportunity. He didn't have to play exceptional. He just had to play good enough. And he had to play good enough to keep putting pressure on Koepka, who, I mean, there's no denying it. I mean, when you're up, I think he was up 6 strokes on the field at one point. He choked it away. He choked it away. And I don't know, did you watch Full Swing at all? Did you watch the Netflix series?
I watched a couple episodes. I didn't get to watch too much of it.
So
But
he, in the Full Swing series, he goes, I couldn't even tell you who won the Masters last year.
yeah,
He goes, but I know that I'm going to win it next year. And so
he was pretty damn close.
I mean, he got close, but I'm
Pretty
like,
damn close. As close as almost
Sure.
you can get.
there's something to be said for getting a little dose of humble pie, and seeing that you have guys that are just. I mean, Rahm is just a flat out better golfer. He's got more guts. He's got more metal. He's got a better game. Um, and to say that Liv can compete with the PGA Tour after watching the Masters, I don't think. I just think it because when you look at the leaderboard, how many guys on that leaderboard on the PGA Tour are under 30 years old? A solid majority. Thigala, Hovland is 25. Thigala's 24. Scheffler, Fitzpatrick. You go up and then you go up the board. Rahm is under 20. Henley's a young stud. Cam Young is hitting the ball 400 yards off the tee like a monster. There's just too much talent in that league to say that Liv is even going to sniff them as far as the competitiveness goes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I wanted to feel out where your thoughts were with that
Hate
live tour
them.
here.
Hate them.
Because
Hate 'em.
you know me, I'm an agent of chaos. I like to stir it up a little bit. Do you think any of that had any of that beef from this Full Swing show, from everything where Phil leaves and was stirring it up a bit? Rory was a big backer who didn't even make the cut, I don't think, right?
Nope. No, he didn't play well from Jump Street, which was kind of sad. But I think, I mean, everybody has a bad tournament. Don't get me. I mean, McIlroy in last year's Masters had the best round of the tournament. So he's capable. He's obviously won majors before, but it would have been nice. I'm not gonna lie, to see sort of either a Cam Smith, who was probably of everybody that left the most talented of the live golfers. He makes 200 million up front. But something here, actually sort of a side story, not to derail, but Koepka has evidently expressed interest in getting out of his contract already with the Live Golf Tour. So what that tells me is something's not right with Live. It tells me that something with that model is not working out, because if somebody handed me $130 million, I'd probably want to stick it out for a little bit. But if it tells you what those guys think of sort of the decisions that they've made.
Yeah, just from like the outsider perspective, kind of watching. I'm a Brooks guy, big part of my take guy, so he's on all the time there, and his attitude when it comes to it, golf wise, is kind of something I get behind a little bit. Where he's just like, yeah, I go out, I compete, if I win, I win. I'm always trying to win, but if it's not a big event, it is what it is. And I think him playing in the Masters again in a big stage where every shot mattered, it kind of left a sting, and it really burned him up, where he was just like, I should have won this. Like it was good to feel that pressure again, where you're saying that the Live Tour, where it's kind of everybody's getting that money almost guaranteed, where it's just where you kind of get it if you win here, if you win there, and you're not playing as much. Yeah, I agree with you where if you get that money, I would stick it out and finish it. But I think it's the competitor in him and in some of these guys where the big stages matter for these guys. When it comes down to it, as an athlete, as a competitor, the big stage matter. And he choked on the biggest one. And I think that's kind of where it's kind of getting underneath of his skin a little bit, where maybe he thinks about it again.
Good.
Would you think the PGA would welcome these guys back with open arms, or you think they make them have to earn it a little bit more? Because I was a little surprised the Masters let these guys back in, to be honest with you, at least for this, where none of the other events were letting them in. So, I mean, where do you think that kind of all plays out moving forward?
Well, the Masters is it's unique in that it's one of the tournaments where the field is.
They do whatever they want. They control everything.
Yep.
The broadcast. You have to say patrons, not fans. You can't have your phone.
Fans. Can't run. Can't use your phone. All kinds of stuff. Can't wear certain colors. Yeah, it's a whole bit. But the difference is it's selection by committee. So that's what allowed those live guys to get in. The field is determined by the Masters Committee, which is composed of I don't know how many members. And they're not even all like former PGA Tour pros. They're just random people that have influence. So that answers that question. But as far as like where it leaves the PGA Tour in terms of what they're going to do with these live guys, with Jay Monahan, and I don't want to speak to it too much because I don't want to put words in his mouth. He's technically my boss, but he made it very clear last year that it would be one of those things where if you make your decision, you make your decision. And the PGA Tour came back with a better product for their golfers. I don't know if you noticed, the prize money has been doubled for a lot of these events to attract the best golfers in the world to come play these events. And going back to what you had mentioned about Koepka choking it away, it proves that you cannot simulate that sort of environment unless you play in the PGA Tour, flat out. I mean, even if you're not playing in the Masters. For instance, I attended the Players Championship back in March, and even that environment, I mean, there's nothing. I've seen live golf events. I've watched them on YouTube. You know, the difference is like, one, their TV contract is with CW, and I don't know if you know CW, but it's not really your typical sports conglomerate for TV. So they can't get the TV deal. They can't get the fans. There's nothing that can recreate a true PGA Tour event that these guys have been playing. And look, I'll go back to this. I probably, being a normal human being, if somebody offered me that much money, I would take it. But on the backside of it, the PGA Tour made it very clear that it's not going to be welcome home with open arms if you decide that you don't want to do this anymore, because it was a damage to the game to leave and sort of to fracture the sport. So it's their fault. I mean, you make a decision like that, you deal with the consequences.
Yeah. I mean, to answer a little bit of can you recreate that, right? I think you can. And I think the biggest thing is the way you do that is through time, right? A lot of people, we're going to get to baseball in a couple minutes here, but, you know, with the World Baseball Classic, oh, it doesn't mean anything, blah, blah, blah. There's no history behind it. What makes the Masters so great is the history behind it. PGA Tour, the history behind it. That's what makes sports and things so great, is the history, the time, everything behind it. And that's what the live golf needs. I just don't think with the money they're shelling out, they're not going to be able to keep up and be able to have this thing grow with the amount of time that it needs to be able to grow, where you've seen things like the XFL and other sports leagues try to hop into the markets of these other professional leagues, and they just don't have the money. Well, maybe these Saudi guys have the money, even though they don't care, but the time and the patience for these big time golfers to be able to grow something special over there. And I agree with you. It's going to be interesting because it's such a big giant figure. I just love seeing not pettiness, but a little bit from here and there. But in a game like golf, where it's so individualized and it's so like clean and proper, but it's nice to see guys get a little nitty gritty, talk some trash to each other, get mad, and just see kind of the hatred that can build up, the storylines that you can kind of get from having competing things, where you really haven't had that in a couple of years. I mean, it was Phil and Tiger, right, in the mid 2000s. But other than that, what really has been the big thing for the PGA Tour that's really drawn numbers greatly, right? I mean, there really hasn't been anything too crazy. Rory was coming up, and he was a big storyline, but he kind of faded off the past 5 or so years. So, I mean, honestly, I think the PGA Tour should be thanking Liv for giving this another little resurgence, a bump, and a kick back into golf that was kind of going stale. They need these storylines, and it's helped out.
I would agree with you there. I mean, I think the Live has, without trying to, help the PGA Tour.
Yeah,
I mean, if you think about golf
big time.
in general, how much has it grown? I mean, between that and I mean, you and I both are aware of rugby as a fast growing team sport. Fastest growing individual sport is golf, without a doubt. It's more accessible both to the average person and to anybody that wants to watch TV. There's so many more ways to watch it now. It's Live, I would say, if anything, has shown the PGA of kind of where the holes are, and where they need to make fixes. And I could tell you, I mean, prize money is one thing, but I agree with you there. I mean, the game could probably use a little bit more personality to it. In the same way that, we'll get into baseball, but same thing. It's a great sport. I could sit there and watch golf all day. However, it is nice to have sort of and I think the NBA has perfected this, and the NFL as well, creating personalities and characters within the game. Golf it's getting there. I mean, I think you see um, certain guys that are a little bit fiery that are coming in. Ron being one of them. I mean, that dude, when he is chasing the lead, there's nothing like it. And they were, he it's interesting, when it comes to Live, it's not so much that they had the personality, but their motto was, golf but louder. It's tough to be loud when nobody goes to the events. But aside from that, I would say they've done a good job of showing the PGA Tour, like I said, what they need to kind of patch up, which would be prim and proper is not going to work with our generation, I don't think.
No.
People want excitement, people want personality, they want drama. Because if you're consuming content, think about how many more options there are, how many more things you can watch. It's one of those things where I think you'll see it in like 3 years as the rules start to loosen up about what you can wear and what you can do and what you can say. And you'll see, I mean, I think if you watch Full Swing, if you ever get that chance,
Yeah,
the last line is "F you, Phil Mickelson," and that comes from Rory McIlroy straight up. So you got guys, they're starting to understand that, okay, well, if they're going to do this, then we're going to hit back harder. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, and guys like Brooks, are kind of guys some people gravitate towards, where it's just like, I'm just going out there and playing the game. Like, I'll black out from holes 5 to 11, where I'm just kind of like, it gets a little boring for them, even though guys at the top level. And you see guys like Max Homa, who's finally bringing some attitude into it and being able to joke and roast people and have fun with it. And who was the one guy in Full Swing? I didn't get to watch the whole thing yet, but he was out there drinking, right? And like his best rounds when he's just like blacked out drunk. Now, I mean, obviously you can't be doing that in a PGA event, but just bringing that life a little bit, like behind the scenes of what guys are actually like, where you're out on the course just like regular guys having fun. Like, I feel like that's some stuff that they can definitely bring to not the forefront, but some side stuff for people that'd be like, hey, we're normal people too. We're just out there. We're just a little bit better at making our putts than you guys.
Well, yeah, and PGA Tour Entertainment, as a side note, is building the largest entertainment facility golf has ever seen. So they are prepping for more golf on TV, more access to players, things that you just, because golf before was like, oh, yeah, I see Tiger on Sunday, but Tiger was one of those guys where, like, not only was he talking smack, but he was in your face. He was on commercials. He was a brand. I think with golf, and you can see that with the NFL, right? I mean, you have guys with huge personalities that play the game right, and it makes it more entertaining to watch when you know about those one-on-one rivalries. I think that, and to mention your point, it was John Daly. So John Daly used to get
Nah,
hammered.
not Daly, not Daly. It was another guy. He's younger.
Joel Damon is interesting in that yeah, he's kind of what I think the PGA Tour needs a little bit more of. Um, he's not afraid to go out there and have a great time. And even if he's not playing the best, you know that he's out there killing it. And the sound bites from him in the middle of the round are exceptional. So when you have that I think they just need more of it. And going back to what I was saying, I think they need a John Daly. I think they need a guy who's going to show emotion out on the course, who's going to wear his emotions on his sleeves. Because it is a professional game. You got to be professional in any sport. You have to be considerate of the fans. But I don't see anything wrong with dropping an F bomb here and there. And if everybody shanks one. PGA Tour guys shank one. Hit
Yeah.
one in the water, slam your club, do something, show me that it matters, as opposed to trying to keep like you don't have to hold back. When a guy scores a touchdown in the NFL, are they holding back? No, they're doing a slam dunk on the field goal post and screaming and throwing the football, because that's what makes fans want to watch the game.
What makes it so relatable is when they do shank that, right? They're able to compose themselves after the fact, be able to make that next one, and that's what gets people to that next level, is being able to bounce back from that struggle and then show the emotion like, yes, I just did that after I just was terrible. So it'll be interesting to see for sure.
For sure. I think one of the things that they can implement, and not to get too far away from the Masters, but baseball has done a good job, not a great job, but a good job of giving you more access to players with the mic'd up. I think, imagine if you could hear what a PGA Tour player is thinking, and then if they execute it, you're like, how the hell did they do that? And it's interesting. They have some caddy player conversations, but I don't want the fluffed up version. I want you to tell me, well, how you feel after you hit a shot. Like, why don't they put a camera? Not, I don't want to say stick a camera on somebody's face, but why not put a microphone to a guy after he plays a hole? Why wait till after the round?
Yeah, walk into
I
the
know
next one. Hey, how about that shot right there? What was going through your mind approaching the green? What were you trying to aim for? Where they like chip one in from about 50 yards out? Just get that raw emotion. Yeah.
Yeah, or ask them, because if you're never going to be more pumped up, full of adrenaline and emotional than when you're in the middle of an event. So I would have given anything after Koepka bogeys. I think it was one on the back nine. It was when he was really crumbling, which was again fun for me to see, because I'm not a Brooks fan. I think he's a douche. But if there was ever a time where you could get a real soundbite, it would be there. Hey, how's it feel to choke this one away, dude? How's it feel to put that one in the rough? Did it look like, how did it feel off the club face?
And then he throws you in the water.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's huge. I wouldn't say it to his face, but if you have that, I mean, I think you'll get a better sort of glimpse into what these guys are really like. And Full Swing did do a pretty good job of that, showing you kind of like sort of who's your douchebag of the tour, who are your good guys, who is a consummate professional. There's a place in the game for all of that. You think about the NFL, right? Peyton Manning, the sheriff, right? Consummate professional. Tom Brady, consummate professional. Then you have some nut jobs, right? Then you have guys like Randy Moss doing crazy things. Like, the golf needs a mixed bag. You can't have everybody be sort of uniform in how they act and think. And I think golf is starting to realize that. They're starting to figure out that it's for people that don't necessarily understand the game of golf to a T, not to make a pun, but if you're not watching the game because you care about how a guy can draw the golf ball or what his putting stroke looks like, you're watching it because you want to see some entertainment. You want to see the crowd roar. You want to see that. And actually, I think the Waste Management Open, I don't know if you watched that this year, it's a gigantic party. It's an absolute party, guys. And last year, guys were taking their shirts off after they drain a putt. There's beer flying all over the place. Golf is a fun sport. I just think they need to get rid of the country club sort of atmosphere. Get rid of that. That doesn't. It's okay, but for somebody that doesn't want to drop 50 G's on a country club membership, they don't care about that. They're out there, they're drinking beer, listening to music with their buddies, playing 18 on a Saturday. Golf needs a little bit more of that. And I think Live, not to talk about them too much, but that's something that they've kind of put in the PGA Tour's ear. Now, again, they're backed by Saudi blood money. So, I mean, it is what it is, right? You can't justify anything that they're really doing. But the one thing that they've done well is give the PGA Tour a dose of reality, which is the old guard kind of has to roll out, right? And I actually think guys like Tiger have done a much better job about ushering in a new generation. You think about everything that he's doing to grow the game, making it more accessible to people that didn't grow up in a country club atmosphere. I think you'll start to see more personalities on tour. Guys that grew up normal that were just really good athletes, super competitive, great personalities that chose golf because of the way that it's growing, as opposed to before where it was really only limited to guys that had money, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But
Now,
yeah,
my biggest thing, man, I feel like we wrapped up golf pretty well there, right? I mean, it was a big weekend for the Masters, some things moving forward here. People getting out now, probably. I know I am getting into that golf itch a little bit as it's starting to warm up around the Philadelphia area. You're down in Florida now. So it'll be fun to see for sure as this game grows because, there's a lot of things that not only needs, but, will be changed. It seems like moving forward for the better. And let's move into something else. We both worked and played baseball for a long, long time now. There's been a lot of rule changes implemented over this past season here. We're a couple weeks in. I've been kind of waiting to talk about it and feel it out. The pitch clock. There's a lot, the disengagements for the pitchers. What are our first initial reactions? And then I'll kind of see where you're at and tell you how you're right or you're wrong.
sure. So I actually got to see it before the MLB season
Oh yeah,
started.
while you were working in the minors, right?
Well, actually, so my brother plays at the Division I level for college baseball, and they implemented it. And college starts a little bit sooner, so I saw it in action at a college game. Um, I think one aspect of it is stupid, and I think one aspect of it makes sense. One would be yes, the pace of play at the professional level needs to pick up. If you watch a college game, they were going fast anyway because there's no walk-up songs. I mean, there is, but it's not a 45-second walk-up. It is not as much time in between pitches. There's not advertisements flashed around the stadium to take time in between pitches, right? So I'm actually okay with the pitch clock. I think it ushers the game along. It allows for more offense, not because guys are hitting better. It's because they have a better idea of what's coming when there's only a limited amount of time. Because one of the things is if you're a pitcher and you're running out of time, you have a go-to pitch that you're going to throw. If you get to 2 seconds, 1 second, you have a pitch. You've already determined with your catcher, this is what's coming if we run out of time. So it's going to generate more offense. I think the dumb part of it is pitch com, putting something in the pitcher's ear that can malfunction. We already saw it once with a couple of
Really?
the games.
Yeah.
It's a monitor that tells the pitcher if they're running out of time, essentially, and it also they do not do signs anymore as they once did. Now
Yeah.
everything is essentially it's a guard on the catcher's wrist, and then it's a guard on the pitcher's wrist, and it sends sort of a signal to the pitcher about what they're going to throw. Problem with that is if it malfunctions, which it has 3 or 4 times already, it slows the game down. So I don't I don't love the idea of making baseball into a video game. I do like the idea of speeding up the game. They've done some good things there about limiting the amount of time in between pitches, but I think because it's the first year, there's things that they have to iron out. So you can't expect perfection right away. But you're already hearing guys complain. Like he goes, "Oh, this equipment is stupid. Just give me the clock. I'll throw it on time." I don't think that there's a need for all of this stuff. And it was interesting. On Sunday Night Baseball, it malfunctioned while Rob Manfred was in the booth. And so they're
Yeah.
like, "Well, what do you think about that?" And he's like, "Well, blah blah blah."
Is your
I
biggest
think it's too
thing with
much.
it that it doesn't always work all the time? Or do you like the idea of the fact that you can just go, instead of throwing down 3, 4 signs, you just press it and it's no shake. And a lot of the times you saw like Max Scherzer kind of have it on the inside of his glove. He just presses what he wants, where the pitcher is more calling the game now. Is it just the fact that it's just not as reliable right now? Are you a fan of a pitcher being able to call the game himself?
Yeah, as somebody who pitched for a long time, and just growing up around the game, yeah, most major league pitchers are, especially a guy like Scherzer, who's earned the right to, well, he's a Hall of Famer. Um, and most guys at the major league level have earned the right to call their own game. Now, in baseball, typically the sign comes from the pitching coach to the catcher to the pitcher, and it's all through signs. I don't see any real time benefit from sending a signal from one person to another person to another. It may actually be more inefficient because in baseball, you're so in tune with what's going on. It's boom, boom, boom. Sign is in, sign is given, shake. Okay, no, okay, go. So I get it. I think it's a huge advantage to the hitters because they have a better idea of what's coming because the pitcher does not have the time to sit there and think, okay, well, based on his last swing, this is what I want to do, or based on the way that he made contact with my last pitch, this is what I want to do, or based on the last at bat, this is the pitch I want to throw. It kind of takes some control out of the pitcher's hands, I think, so to speak. And I'm not a huge fan of the beacon and the monitor.
See, my biggest thing, I'm on the other side of it, where if you're a hitter, you got to get back in that box with 8 seconds left, right? You don't have that time to step out, think about, okay, he just threw me a fastball up and in, right? Maybe he'll go to that curveball low and away. Maybe he comes in with a changeup in on my hands. Like, they don't have that time to really think about that anymore. I think it's more in the power of the pitcher where he can go grip it, rip it. I know where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I would say sort of a compromise between the two. Just don't do it in the postseason. I just think that in an atmosphere like that, you have to allow the pressure to mount. You have to allow the things that make baseball great happen. And one of those things, if you watch playoff baseball, it's the anticipation that keeps
Yeah.
people, you're locked in every pitch. It gives everybody a chance. And if you're just rushing, if a playoff game takes 2 hours, I mean, it's not going to have the same feel. It's almost like if you told a golfer, you get a certain, I mean, in golf, yeah, you have a pace of play, but it's like, oh, you got 10 seconds to hit the ball. Well, I'm not ready. Well, it's 10 seconds anyway. And if you're in a playoff atmosphere with that much on the line, and whether it's an equipment malfunction or a pitcher, like I would not be able to settle with myself, somebody getting an extra base in a playoff game because of a time, infraction. It's not, baseball was never meant to be played on, within a certain amount of time. It's innings, not quarters. So I like it for regular season to keep it up because I mean these guys are playing 162 games. You don't want to be, especially if you're playing back to back, you don't want to be out there for 5 hours playing 15 innings. You don't want that. As a baseball player, it just drains on you. As a manager, it kills your bullpen. So I like the quick pace of play. I think it'll help starting pitchers stay in the game longer because they won't be having that long rest period where their arm wears, gets tired and sore and kind of tightens up over time with those long innings. You're going to see guys throw more innings, but as long as it doesn't eke into the playoffs, I didn't look into whether it will or not, but I would say a good compromise is okay. Regular season, fine. Postseason, play the game as it was originally designed, would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, and especially, in Philadelphia, right? Where we just saw so many of the most dramatic experiences this past postseason. Bryce Harper walking up, Bedlam at the bank. I'm getting chills just thinking
Oh, it's
about
great.
it. He hits that opposite field home run against the Padres to give you the lead to send you to the World Series. Rhys Hoskins gets in there, hits an absolute moonshot. Bat spikes it. They got to be around the bases now. You don't have time to build up that drama and anticipation and theatricals where it's just like, all right, we're in, grip it, rip it, go. And now it's a good thing for regular season games because there's 162, but I agree with you when it comes to that playoffs, that's what made it so special. That those moments of just that slow motion, the crowd's building, you feel it. Here it comes, bang.
Agreed.
And now we'll have to see where it moves going forward. I want to get your take on it here. It is a long season. The Phillies are come out struggling a little bit, get a big win last night, putting up 15, I believe.
A win. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
bats
absolutely.
finally get going against Sandy Alcantara of all guys. They're reigning NL Cy Young. They've had his number this past year now. Plus, hopefully that can keep going throughout this season. But it's good to see the bats finally get going. We're able to drive in some runs. But you and I, we texted each. They're not scoring tomorrow. And
No.
what's going to be the biggest thing for this Phillies team where you've had, Reese go down with the ACL? Bryce is going to be coming back in a month, maybe or so from the Tommy John. Your biggest thing, right, has been that depth in the pitching with Ranger being out and not getting deep into ball games with Nola and Wheeler kind of struggling when it gets to that 4th, 5th, 6th inning. And then guys like Castellanos finally comes up with a bunch of big hits last night, right? And, guys like Schwarber had a couple solo shots to begin the year, but they've been struggling driving the guys in with runners in scoring position. Where can this team kind of thrive as we move forward throughout the year and push to when we finally start getting these guys back?
Well, I think it's two things. I mean, yeah, you're missing in Harper and Hoskins. You're missing like 70 home runs. You're missing almost 200 RBIs. I mean, those are numbers that it's yeah, sabermetrically, you could say, okay, we can get close, but unfortunately, Derek Hall is not Reese Hoskins.
I'm a big
Unfortunately,
Hall
Jake,
guy. It stinks that he's out now too with the thumb,
yeah,
but
and
he wasn't going to be
JK,
exactly Reese, but he could be close.
yeah, and JK was not Bryce Harper. So it's sort of it's a different cast from what you're going to see when it matters, August, September, when they make their run. And I think, for all intents and purposes, Harper taking the time to make sure he's right is important. There's no need to rush him back, even if you're playing 500 baseball in May. Okay, where were they in May last year? Not 500, tell you that. Much below. They were playing terribly. I would say the
They
other
were barely
concern,
that going into the final month of the season.
yeah, yeah. So it doesn't, to me, how you play in April doesn't define how you're going to play in September. So I'm not too concerned about a slow start. I mean, it's a completely new team. The batting order has been completely changed. Keep in mind, this is Rob Thompson's first full season as manager. He's figuring out the ropes from start to finish. But as I was watching the first series against Texas and even New York as well, leading into this homestand, it was just bad fundamental baseball, guys. And I get that it's a little bit different not being able to shift, but if anything, you should be more comfortable because you're playing the position you've always played in the normal position. So it was interesting. I saw errors, atypical errors from Turner, just guys not making routine plays, and then
Base running, base
hitting wise,
running.
base running was bad, and hitting wise, like you said, situational hitting. Last year that was their calling card. If they needed to move a guy over, it didn't matter who was up. He was going to move that guy over. Bryce Harper would lay a bunt down if it was needed. Yeah, I didn't see a lot of that to start out. And I know guys are swinging it. Alec Boehm specifically looks light years ahead of where he was last year. So he may fill Hoskins' shoes in offensive production. But going back to what I was saying with uh, the fundamentals of baseball, and I sound like such an old head when I say that, but it's important. If you look at the Astros, what do they do well? All the little things. And that's why they win year in and year out. Dusty Baker does a really good job of instilling those ideas with those guys. And Rob Thompson does the same thing. And it's nice to see that the Phillies have retained a majority of their coaching staff from last year. But they really need to work on sort of getting back to that mentality of, okay, last year it was forced. It was next man up. This year is going to you have to have the same mentality, even if you have everybody healthy. It doesn't matter if it's Trey Turner or Bryce Harper up. If there's a guy on second base and there's no outs, he's got to go to third. And I just saw a lot of sort of taking too much of a swing when it wasn't needed. You mentioned Schwarber being one of those guys. Yeah, he's got a couple home runs and that's his job, but he can do so much more. He doesn't have to worry about the shift anymore. Now he can just take a nice easy swing and lay a line drive out the right field. So it's going to be different. They're going to have to kind of refigure out their roles and who's doing what, but just sort of cleaning it up a little bit. And as you mentioned with the pitching, I don't think that's typical of April baseball. Pitchers are not typically fully loose until June, to be honest with you. Everybody's on a pitch count until that point. I mean, Jacob deGrom does not get shelled, and the Phillies made him look ridiculous. They shelled him in his first outing, and he's the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion. So I don't put too much stock in April pitching. I think it's everybody's in a working out process to figure out sort of what they need to do to get to 100%. Nola always figures it out. Wheeler, it's going to take a little bit of time. But what I'm concerned about is not having that fourth and fifth starter locked in.
Yeah.
Last year it was Syndergaard. That kind of helped them through the season. I think it's going to either be one of their prospects, McGarry or Abel or Andrew Painter, or it may just be another veteran that comes in and does the job.
Yeah, I
But
mean, Stram,
they're going to
Strom,
need
who pitched. Well,
they're going to need some help. They're going to need some help. But I think if you look at if they're playing good competitive baseball in June, they're going to pick up another stud. They're going to get Harper back. They're not going to get Hoskins, but Harper alone is an absolute game changer. So I don't mind where they're at. I would like them to clean up sort of the little things, especially from guys that are not considered your major contributors, but if they can fix the ship, pitching rounds into form, they pick up a couple extra arms, they'll be good to go.
Andrew, I want to thank you, brother. I think it was a lot of fun. I hope everybody out there enjoyed this episode. A little golf talk, a little baseball talk. I'm going to be at the game today and tomorrow. Dollar Dog Night. Hit me up. Challenge me. I want the challenge so you can eat the hot dog the fastest at Dollar Dog Night. Go check out Philly Drinkers. Andrew, you got any Philly Drinkers yet? Yes, you did. Say yes.
I didn't get I didn't get the merch drop yet, dude. You got to ship some down to Florida.
Oh, yeah. We'll work on that. Using promo code Brendan PETRILLI. What is an episode without something going wrong? I hope everybody enjoyed that. Thank you, Andrew, for hopping on the show. Hope everybody enjoyed it a lot. Like I was saying, I'm going to be at the Phillies game today and tomorrow. Hit me up. It's going to be a lot of fun. Go check out Philly Drinkers. Use promo code Brendan PETRILLI for 10% off at checkout. Get some awesome shirts just like this. The Fightins, baby. We're going to get more into it. The Sixers playoff push starts this weekend. We'll get into that also. Stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button. Going to be putting vlogs out from the games this week. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let's get after it. Shout out 215. Go Birds. The Fightins, baby. Dingerdelphia.